know we are at the match where business and sport meet, and we couldn't have found someone who fits that more appropriately than Mr. Ramon Vega, who has been both a professional footballer and today, as you've heard, runs a hedge fund for $1 billion. So please, ladies and gentlemen, give a warm welcome and thank you to Mr. Ramon Vega.
There you go. Thank you, Simon.
It's a pleasure. If we start off, and there'll be some questions at the end if any of you got, but we'll run through the whole 25 minutes and then we'll hand over to you guys if you do have any questions. Ramon has kindly agreed. If we start off, Ramon, what's obviously fascinating for us is if we start your early life, you started off obviously in Switzerland. Mm-hmm. You started your career at Grasshoppers. Unusually, and I don't know many footballers like it, and that's where the question, we're called Where Business and Sport Meet. My question to you is, what came first? Was it business or sport? Because we know when you were at Grasshoppers, I think you went on an apprenticeship whilst playing at Grasshoppers and did your banking and finance degree, if I'm right.
Absolutely agree there, yes. Okay. Well, sports was first to start with because it's my love. And football obviously was my passion and still my passion. And I was lucky enough to do it in a professional way, in a high level way. I was also the Swiss international player, captain that as well. And played in England and Italy and France as well. So, yeah, football was my first love, frankly saying.
And then what's interesting is they gave you the opportunity. Tell us a little bit about how that worked.
Well, if you know Switzerland a bit, I think the education system itself is extremely well organised and established in terms of they give you really good foundation to go out of the world and really have good universities to go into it, etc. You don't have to go into the whole private school scenario, or you have to think about as a family to go in the private school. So I was very lucky to have that kind of well-found kind of education platform in Switzerland. And at the same time, could actually do my love, that's playing football. And Grasshoppers really gave me the chance to do a Credit Suisse at that time, to kind of an apprenticeship program. It was the first kind of pilot trial at that time, and we took it now over 20 plus years. And yeah, I was 3 years, there was apprenticeship, working half a day at Credit Suisse, 2 days at business schools as well, half a day at the bank as well. You have that kind of apprenticeship school as well. So you pretty much know the whole practical side of banking, but also the theoretical part, because it's very important. I think I'm a big fan having apprenticeship within your organisation, because they start to know about your business from scratch, and maybe may do mistakes in the start, but over the period of time they will really know about your philosophy, the way you want to go, and your product. And from my point of view, it was a fantastic learning experience and also great education. And yeah, the rest pretty much was history. I went to professional playing football as such, but that was still my love and passion. And I done my degree, and then the whole career went all the way up to Swiss national team with Roy Hodgson at that time. We qualified for the first time the World Cup in '94. England, unfortunately, was on holiday at that time. Well, I have to mention that we're Swiss, we're a small little country, you know. So yeah, Roy Hodgson was a fantastic job, and I think he's a great manager, and I think for England, I think he's a top manager for England as well, because he created in Switzerland, again, it's all about the education and the foundation of grassroots. If you see now the whole academy of football in Switzerland is top notch. We're talking an under-17 Swiss country winning the World Cup. We're not talking England, Germany or Brazil or anybody else, we're talking Switzerland. Around 7 million people living there only, compared to here about 60 plus. So a really, really structured, proper academy in place, and really these under 17 players, they're now the first team, the national team now going to the World Cup. As you can potentially see, the last few World Cups and European Championships, Switzerland, with a small country as it is, done very well against big countries, you know, and some quality players producing. So that's part of Roy Hodgson. I'm talking 20 years ago, and I think now the FA here has a great man to do that, but does he have the time to do it? That's the only problem.
We'll come back to the managers a little later, if that's okay. Let's just go back a little bit to whether it was or not, but you moved from Cagliari and you got signed by Tottenham for 3.75 million. Just tell us a little bit about what that felt like when you made that move for that price.
Well, first of all, I was always dreaming to come to England at that time, and I was playing the Serie A with Cagliari, and Alan Sugar pretty much after European Championship in '96 here in England. I played here from the beginning. Wanted to be already at Spurs, so for 6-7 months he was trying to, get me over to Spurs. But the negotiation with the Italians, as you could potentially might imagine, is always very difficult. So at the end, he managed to pay quite a lot of money in those days, 3.75 for the defender, like you're saying. And I was very happy to play for the club I wanted to play and play in England. So the rest was history. I played 4.5 years, enjoyed that. We had ups and downs. I still won the League Cup with them. So that's kind of very important in any profession, is having a medal, because that's the one that's never die.
Well, you mentioned there the League Cup. If you had to pick, and again, it's excellent when you've got a man who I don't need to really even be here. He's giving you all my questions before I ask them. It's fantastic. No, it's fantastic. I'm loving it. You carry on. I'm absolutely loving it. But when you mentioned Tottenham, you mentioned the League Cup final. If you had to pick the moment that stands out for you in your career, and you've had fantastic moments, 23 caps for Switzerland, you scored a goal against England in a friendly.
Yeah.
Didn't you? 1-1 draw, you scored the goal?
1-1, yeah. We won a lot. Should have won that.
But on top of that, if you had to pick, but if you had to take,
how they could come to England like that, you know?
But if you had to pick your one moment that stands out, I think it is that League Cup final, isn't it?
Yeah, that was for sure. Yeah, I think it was a period when Spurs really was struggling in the league, and we had lots of trouble at that time. Trying to find each other. We had a great club, you know, in terms of players, etc. We had David Ginola, Klinsmann, Sol Campbell, Les Ferdinand. We took a quality team, but we still struggled to do in the league very well. So there was a year where George Graham took over after about 2 or 3 other managers. So it's kind of.
It was interesting for you when George took over, because your performance went up under him.
It was fantastic, frankly saying, because George Graham, but he was really focusing on the defence. And the period he came involved.
As us Arsenal fans know very well.
Yeah, we're boring. What can I say? You know? But it was very important. At that time when George came into, Sol Campbell and myself, we had stability in the back. You know, we had kind of organisation, and it's good because it gives you confidence as a player, because you got structure in place. You know what you're doing, and you know the player next to you knows what he's doing, vice versa. So it's you're creating a team structure with a structure in place. And before it was all over the place, these organised, each one was quality players, but you couldn't really take the best out of each one, you know. And George Graham really done that, and within 2 months he really turned around, and we went all the way to the finals. We actually semi-finals FA Cup as well at that time. So it was a good period.
And in that game you played a massive part, because the famous Emil Heskey off the line, wasn't it?
Yeah, that was one of the great tacklers, I would say. I think Sol Campbell, Emil Heskey's big boy, you know, and Sol Campbell as well. So he pretty much took Sol Campbell kind of like a little boy to the side, and pretty much was galloping behind Heskey behind there and just trying to get that tackle into it. Otherwise, we might lost that game, frankly.
Not only did you make the tackle, you started the game, if I'm not mistaken, with a bad ankle already.
Yes, yeah.
And you, by doing that tackle, you did damage to yourself. You then didn't play for a year.
Pretty much, yeah. I'd say I damaged the ankle beforehand already.
Correct.
I don't want to miss the cup final, you know. Something very important. And if I look back, I won now because that was great. But I have a medal to look into.
So when you look back, and that was the point I wanted to, and you've mentioned it again, but when you look back, you took a risk to play. You then made that tackle. You then were left for a year out. Was it a risk you would have taken again?
Yes, all day long.
You do it again?
All day long. Yeah, but listen, you play for your club, you want to win for the club. Simple as that, you know. And then if you have a chance to win a medal, and especially at that time, Spurs was not winning, I think, for about nearly 15 years, a medal. And I think we were the first team for Spurs to winning something for the club. And I think it goes back to history, you know, and I made history there. And that's the nice thing about it.
So a risk worth taking.
Always. There's no doubt. Not 1 second.
And also, and I might be incorrect, but even through your playing career, apparently on like bus journeys to games, whether away or not, you did manage to sneak off and pick up a Financial Times and was seen quickly keeping up with what was going on. And on top of that, I think you had an office at the back helping some of the players with visa applications. Is that right?
Not visa application. I haven't got visa application knowledge whatsoever. No, I was always interested outside the football of any other things. The financial industry was one of the part I was, interested because I was educated in the industry and I was following the market. I had a lot of friends who were studying with me at that time. They grow their career in the banking industry, went to MD, CEOs of banks, etc., etc. We always, of course, kept in touch. They wanted to be a football player, and obviously, I was still in their business as well because I liked that business as well. So I followed that market, and maybe it was unusual, but that was something I was interested in, and I had an education in place, at the time.
And just going back to, you mentioned Roy Hodgson and you spoke about him as a manager. Who were the other managers that inspired you, that got the best out of you, or managers that you admired at the time?
Well, George Kramer was one, because I think from his organisational and structure, putting in the team was very important, because it's a winning formula. I think in business it's the same thing, It's all about how quality the players you bring in, is how good you actually structure the team to produce the results, and George Graham was a good example, because we had not the best, but we also had both kind of side, and we balanced that off in having a good organisation. Everybody knew what exactly you has to do, and that's a winning formula, to be honest with you. So George Graham, Ottmar Hitzfeld was the other one, the German one, the Grasshoppers. Obviously very successful with Borussia Dortmund, etc. He was a more man-to-man manager, where it's very important as well. So, when you feel down, that somebody comes up and lifts you up, etc. So a mixture between all these three, I think I would say. I can't single out.
Okay, and just moving on now to sort of the next half of your career, when you finished playing in 2003, was it literally, and that's for us the transition, is very interesting, obviously, but was it literally straight from the pitch to the boardroom?
Not straight like that. Sorry. Now that's the difficult part, and that's difficult, I think, for everybody who changes a career in a different industry, because you're coming from an industry you'll be perceived as a football player, and of course the natural follow-up is being a coach, manager, etc. I went completely the opposite, and that part was very, very hard to accept for the people who I was going into the finance world. So that challenge was very, very tough, frankly saying, more than even playing the biggest game or in front of 80,000, 100,000 people in the World Cup. That was really, really challenging, because you had that perception. Within you walking in that room, you knew already these guys don't even believe you, don't even say he's a football player, he doesn't know what the hell he's talking about, etc., etc., etc. So it was very tough to pursue that part, and also accept that these guys have just for the beginning a perception to you, and you just have to prove them. But the beauty about that, I come from the sports side, and you have to prove every day, every Saturday. So that part really gives me the strength to say, listen guys, you might be here, maybe tomorrow you work for me. That was in my mind when I go into. I was going to Goldman Sachs or God knows what, presenting my fund. I had these old nice gurus in front of me, talking lovely languages, and you can see the arrogance, of course, with their tone. And in my head, I said, you're going to work for me one day, maybe. And so that gives me the strength pretty much to know more about the industry, actually be more prepared than the person I have opposite me. So that means I need to have more knowledge than the guy I have in front of me, because then I'll ask the questions, not the person to me. I need to answer, because you're pretty much on your back foot all the time. I like to be always in the front. So I knew that very early stage, the first 3-4 months when I got into the industry. So I was the first 9 months with my equity trader, really behind the Bloomberg, and just go, don't forget, when I started to my apprenticeship at Credit Suisse, there was no Bloomberg. There was still the old-fashioned ringing that black phone and the black book and 1 million UBS shares and putting all that stuff and put it up. Now it's just click, click, click. So I needed to learn all about the whole IT thing. That took me a good 6 months. But I wanted to know even more. I wanted to know the whole strategy, that kind of how you position yourself when you do any position in the equity market or fixed income, etc., or any instruments we wanted to buy into it. In details, the structure, everything, really going down, not the sell side, the marketing. You can teach one person 1 month. He will learn the language, but he won't have a clue what they're actually selling, frankly saying, because he won't go down in technical how actually potentially the bond or the CLO, etc., has been structured, the risk behind that. And I wanted to go very deep in that knowledge. I needed to, because obviously any room I walked into it, I already was losing before I walked in. So I walked in winning already, because I want to know more than the person opposite me.
And what are the lessons, you mentioned now one of the lessons, what are the other lessons that you took from your playing days from sport and you put into your business, in your everyday business?
Well, I think the sports is one part that gives you a DNA you're creating, in terms of you creating a determination, you're creating a winning kind of ambition, in terms of even you hitting the wall 20 times and you're just not getting the next level. You still have that vision to go to the next level. So we all go phases, it's not working, we're not closing the deal, we're not this, and just like, it's hard. And you wanted to give up, etc. The sports side, that's what kicks in and say, you don't give up, because it pays off. It does pay off. You try until you get it. And that's one DNA I luckily had already when I went into the business. So it's not something I needed to learn to. It was there.
And you've also taken this, you're involved with from the pitch to the
pitch
boardroom.
Yeah.
Tell us a little bit about what you do with that.
Well, from pitch to boardroom is a creation of pretty much of what I done in both worlds, is having over 15 years being a professional football player and having quality managers around me, and be as a captain within a team, and also building businesses and creating within the business a team around you. And from pitch to boardroom is pretty much a coaching methodology of leaders in the business, and using football managers' methodology, how really having a winning team around you. And it's not just talking about it, there's a process behind with a board game. So we're playing a board game, frankly saying, and it's like a fantasy football, but in the business world. So you do business scenarios where you have to create, and you do create a team for, let's say, I don't know, whatever business you guys are, and when you want to launch a new product, so who are the team you want to put on? And we're talking the Salesforce, the business development side, the back office, the IT potentially. He was talking about social media scenario, all of that. Who is that person you have in your team or not? So within that scenario, with the CEOs or MDs, etc., you creating around the table kind of a conversation, and you extract knowledge about your business where you potentially might not even know, because we're all transaction driven. We all measure how much money you made. Well, that's wrong. Well, at the end of the day, it's the people making the business, not the business makes the people. So it's very important you have the quality people around you to get to that goal, get the turnover or selling the product. And so that is what Pitch to Boardroom actually presents. And of course, I can bring a lot of experience from both worlds. And having 15 years football and over 15 years now in the fund industry, yeah, I can potentially give a lot of experience and potentially some advice.
Not so long ago, you did put a bid in to buy Portsmouth.
Well, that's about 4 or 5 years ago, yes.
Is that something that you, with everything else that you're involved in, would you look to get back into football by owning a club or getting involved in management?
Going back to the first question you asked me, to finance of football. Football was always my passion. It's still going to be my passion, you know. Portsmouth was an attempt. Seeing the numbers, I was lucky I didn't do it, frankly saying. Well, we see what happened there afterwards. I went bankrupt and I told them. But at the same time, it was a great opportunity. The club himself, it was a raw kind of place, and you can really build up in terms of the stadium side. The academy was not existing. There was actually nothing there. It was really the old-fashioned way of football, and I like that challenge because you really can, from scratch, build something there. But the numbers was just, yeah, way beyond of even do business with them.
And just a few more questions from me, but in your opinion, should the clubs, based on how you started your career with the apprenticeship, do you think the clubs today, or the PFA even, should be doing more for preparing players after they finish football?
Absolutely, yeah, absolutely. I think more today than even in the past. Frankly saying, in the past, it was a rarity in terms of any in my age. There was none of them had the opportunity. I was very lucky again because I grew up in Switzerland. They had, again, their focus very much on the whole education system, etc., and give you after football an opportunity to go into it. I think even with the money is involved today, the Premier League, but we're talking also Championship, etc., go all the way down. So we're always talking only about the Premier League, there's a lot of money, but we're talking Championship in the lower division. These guys are still football players, but they're not earning what the Premier League potentially can earn and have a good buffer in terms of the pension for the long term. So I think it's very important all the Championship clubs and the lower division have a program for all these players in either the local businesses, having an apprenticeship, which is very good because they can also gain marketing because they've got the local football player there with the business, study there, but also the player gains out of them as well because they get an education for afterwards. So it's a win-win formula, to be honest with you, and I think the football clubs should do that. The PFA, without that, should do that. They do it, but not really, frankly saying. And I think the FA should also look into that as well. Because at the end of the day, we are football players, we finish at 35. Most of us in normal life, 35, you're starting your proper career in a senior executive level. These guys, they finish, they have to start from scratch. How many coaches can hire? So it's very difficult for these football players to go into the normal life or have a job somewhere where they go into it because they have no experience. They have 15 years, they were living just for football. And you were living in a bubble, lovely bubble, we were saying, but it's a bubble. The reality check comes when you retire because you have to go to basics again. Oh, you're 35, you're not 17. You all guys went through that. You went to university, you had the whole stuff. And by 35, you got the experience, how it works, etc. You're building your career, you go to the MD, potentially making your own businesses, you're investing, etc. These guys at 35 had no experience, zero. The opposite, they'd be potentially even badly advised, buying a pub or whatever, or investing somewhere because, they have no knowledge. And the agents and people around them, of course, they're very, like sharks there because these guys are cash rich, but not asset rich. That's the difference. So I always will protect players because I was a player, and if we can do for them to give them a chance after playing football to go in any industry, we should and help them.
And finally, from me, if we look at the current Tottenham setup, which I know you follow still quite regularly, you go to White Hart Lane.
Yeah.
2 questions. What do you think of the current setup and manager? And my final question, which I'll enjoy, will Tottenham finish below Arsenal again next season?
He's not convincing me on the question already. It's like, you're Arsenal. Why are you doing that to me?
Last question.
Huh? Listen, I think the current setup. Pochettino, I think he's done very well at Southampton. Let's be honest. I think this last season, I was questioning the players that took on, spending 100 million plus, quite a lot of money, frankly saying. I didn't see any difference of any players that go in to the squad. We can see now, some of them that they want to sell it, nobody will potentially take it, you know. It's not because they're completely bad, it's just the whole year was not very well organised, and it's going to become the selection of the team. It's very important. You can spend 100 million by selecting potentially not rubbish, because you can't say that, because all of them are good players, but they're not fit together as a team. Some of the players that might go to another team and they'll be the star there because the whole environment, the players next to him work very well. In corporate, it's the same thing. You might go to a corporate, you might the star in the previous corporate, but in that way you go into it, you suddenly, it's not working. Then you go away, you go to somewhere else, you're suddenly a star again. Because the environment, the team, the people you have around you is not working with you, or you can't work with them. In football, it's the same thing. So I think last year, Pochettino was, for him, a very difficult task to hand over all these players and reorganise it. They're new. Most are talking about more than 50% new players to come in. It's tough in any organisation. Can you imagine you got 100 people, 50 people you have to change in your organisation? It would be a nightmare. They take about 3 months to train before they even know your business. In football, you have to be instant. On Saturday, you have to be successful. So that's the difference between business and football. Obviously, we're public, so everybody can point the finger. In business, we can potentially hide behind the desk and the computer. So, yeah, it's the truth. That's what it is. That's reality. And coming back to Spurs, I hope this second season, Pochettino might use cleverly with the players you have and add some players he can potentially play together with he has already there. But let's see.
Excellent, thank you. I'm handing over to the room. Has anyone got any particular questions on us? Yes, David.
In that business area, you chose to go when you were at Tottenham, say to Watford. What was the rationale behind that decision to go to a team in a lower division?
From Celtic to Watford?
Yeah.
At that time, Celtic was a great season, treble winning, etc., with Martin O'Neill. I wanted to stay, but I didn't want to stay for 1 year. I want to stay 4 years. I was 30, 31, so coming to the end. Playing Celtic 1 year or playing 4 years at Watford. I'm Swiss, security comes before everything else. So Watford, even the Championship, okay, I'm anyway at the end of my career, is another potential challenge. I never played in the lower leagues. It was tough, frankly saying. But for me, it was this long-term security in place of income, and that's the reason, frankly saying. Yeah.
How's FATCA affected your fund? FATCA. How is FATCA, the American regulation on the account?
Oh yeah, well, I think it affected quite a lot of people, if you're frankly saying. When we had, that was about 5 years ago, we had a lot of American investors in that time, mutual funds, etc. We had pretty much needed to close all of these accounts overnight. And they were big tickets, frankly saying. It was painful. That was just post 2008 at the time. Like I saying, we got used to it now, we live with it, because that's part of the regulation side, and we don't have now any goal to go to the US we focus Europe and Asia. Asia is where pretty much now the inflow of money and marketing has.
Anyone else?
Just say, how did you go about getting your first clients? Because you're a footballer, you're asking them for lots of money. How did they have the confidence to give their money to a footballer?
It's a very good question, yeah. This is a very good question. That's the reason why I was fighting for about nearly 15 years to convince the people. First convince the professionals, and then convince obviously the client. Well, it's two things. Is first of all gain the trust. And gaining trust is knowledge. And with knowledge, you pretty much more than 50% within the client. Because one thing you can sell, everybody in this room can sell potentially. But again, it's going to really deep technical market knowledge, everything else. That's very important from client point of view. That he has somebody opposite there. He might have to advise everything, or might listen to it. And you come with a proposition where, listen, I got this fund, I got this strategy, etc., etc. But you're really going to read depth in terms of the risk factor side, etc. And that's very important from client's point of view. But then the advisor was obviously professional. Might say, well, goodness me, he does know his business. And so I was focusing on this to get my first client in. Again, it was very important as well, my network within the whole 15 years playing football globally was substantial, and that helped me as well and opened the doors. So it's a mixture of both, frankly saying. Yeah. But I still emphasize of knowledge.
So who's the best of the players that you've played with and against?
Klinsmann.
No, Arsenal, mate. Well, at the Spurs, it was David Ginola was one of them. Against, I was playing in Italy. It was Ronaldo, the Brazilian. I read the Barca in those days. Zola, he was then in Italy as well, you know. In England, Alan Shearer. Yeah, I think these are the players I would say with and against. Yeah.
Last question, sorry.
Yeah.
About football in Switzerland.
Yeah.
What are your feelings about what's happened in FIFA?
Mm-hmm.
As a footballer, and you see what's happened with setbacks?
Are you asking me as a Swiss or are you asking me as a footballer?
As a footballer first, and a Swiss
Okay.
second.
As a football player, let's say it that way. As a football player, we are the product of FIFA, to start with. Without us, FIFA doesn't exist. And vice versa, because they're putting structure and regulation in place. What, from my point of view, would like to see with this in the organisation is there should be more football players involved, not bureaucrats. And if, frankly saying, because we football players live the game, know the game, inside and outside, and sometimes you talk to the board level, they're thinking they know the business, but they haven't got a clue. Because they never smell the grass. They might bought the grass, but they never smell the grass. And that should be changed. That culture within that organisation should change very quick, because I think then certain credibility will come in back into the FIFA. And of course, there's a lot of issue in terms of like any government body has. FIFA's one has been pointing out, but we can pick up any other government body who potentially we can start and clean up as well. But I think it's very important that the culture has to be changed. There should be more football players.
Again, the final question from Wayne.
Thank you. I was there for your very first game at White Hart Lane.
Were you?
I was.
Oh, well done.
And you've obviously discovered the secret of eternal youth. You haven't told us what the secret is. So
I don't know. Just keep smiling every day.
Oh, really?
You wake up, look in the mirror, just keep smiling. That's the only secret.
I think on that note, it's a great message to leave it on.
Thank you, guys.